Hello, welcome to an Easter time Gardener's World. What I love most about Easter is the sense of space you suddenly have, space of time. Because this is really the first time since last summer that you can allow yourself to sprawl in the garden. That luxury of starting something, going on into a lengthening evening, and then just leaving it. Going indoors and knowing you can come back outside tomorrow. You just got this extravagance of time and space. And of course, the flowers are emerging like stars amongst the grass, and no plant is more star-like than the anemone. We have here the native wood anemone, Anemone nemorosa, which is delicate and small. But Anemone blanda is often better for a border. This is Anemone blanda white splendor. Bigger plant altogether, bigger flowers, more of them, and it can hold its own in amongst the hurly-burly of a border. So it's just a question of fine-tuning the planting so you get the effect you want, which at this time of year is to combine that sense of newness and freshness with a touch of delicacy. This week, Joe is exploring an extraordinary garden in deepest, darkest Surrey.
This is so dramatic, a real jungle garden. This is amazing.
And Carol returns to see Jeff and Sally in their Somerset garden as they develop a master plan and get started on their mature garden renovation.
The big thing about what you want is this view. But at the moment, you can't even see the pond, can you?
I know, it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would like to be able to see the pond from here.
A couple of weeks ago, I decided to make this area dedicated completely to wildlife. And the point of that is to encourage as much wildlife in as many varied forms as possible and still make it an attractive place to come and sit and grow things and enjoy just as you do any other garden. But one of the first things to do if you're having a wildlife garden is have some water. And the pond is roughly dug out. What we have is a shelf in a semicircle round the back, which I can put plants on, which is semi-submerged. On this side, I've got a very, very gradual slope, which is a beach, to allow animals to crawl in and out of the water, so nothing will drown. And that's really important. If you're making a wildlife pond, you must have an area of beach. But I need to fine-tune it before I can even think about putting water in. First of all, choose a point where you know you want the water level to be. And in this case, it's here. So if I put that in like that, the water will be the level of the top of that peg, and I want it to be above the level of the highest point of that shelf. Now, I've got a spirit level here, it's quite long. A fraction. That'll do. So if we come across here, so it's the bottom of the level, which is that mark there, which means I've got to take more out. I would stress that it's worth taking as long as it takes to get the levels right. Because once the water's in, you can't change it. The next thing to do is to protect the liner, because inevitably there are roots, there's the odd stone, it'll puncture if you get something sharp. So you need some soft barrier between the earth and the liner. I'm going to recycle what I've got, and I've got a mixed bag of stuff. I've got some old carpet liner here. I'm going to put this so it completely covers everywhere the liner is to go. An old blanket. This is the pond liner. It's a synthetic rubber. My advice is shop around and buy the very best you can afford. What we need to do is roll it out. Always get one plenty big enough, because it is deeply frustrating to get one that's too small. The next stage involves taking your shoes off, because I want to get in there and make sure that it's pushed up nice and tight against the underliner. Right. Just weigh this down with stones around the outside, put a hose on it, fill it up. Now, that'll take about 30-40 minutes to fill, and I'll keep an eye on it. A few weeks ago, Carol went to visit Sally and Jeff's garden in Somerset. And they'd bought a house and garden. It was very overgrown, and they felt a bit daunted by it. And now they want to set about making it their own. So, with her help, they've come up with a plan.
Sally and Jeff recently moved into their new house with a mature garden. They now need to gain the skills and confidence to make it their own. So this year, they've asked me to help peel back the years. They've made a start by employing a tree surgeon to remove some of the larger dying conifers. And we've put our heads together to come up with a plan for the garden. Well, armed with our plan, let's have a look. The big thing about what you want is this view.
Yes.
But at the moment, you can't even see the pond, can you?
I know, it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would like to be able to see the pond from here.
The thing about this terrace at the moment, you do feel like there's no proper way down, you know, nothing to join the house to the garden.
Yeah. Well, I think if we have steps in the centre here,
Yeah.
it would lead down almost directly to the pond.
But it would be really lovely, wouldn't it, if those were your steps, to actually have these two
Yes.
big herbaceous borders at the side, full of flowers.
Really
Sally.
going to
Oh,
set
it'd
it
be
off,
fabulous,
isn't it?
Yeah.
wouldn't it? Yes, I'd love that.
Needs to be wide enough, though. You want something about, you know, 6 feet? What's that in metres?
1.8.
So you feel when you're here, you're surrounded by flowers, but then your attention is focused on the view.
Sounds perfect.
And then you come down your gorgeous steps, into the garden proper, and come across here. Now, at the moment, what do you feel about this?
Well, I feel it's a shame it blocks the view of the pond. It'd be nice if the pond was part of the view through to the landscape.
So as part of the garden plan, we can reclaim the view by clearing this area and moving the shrubs to a new nursery bed for now, making room for a spectacular new flower border.
That would be superb when I'm sitting on my bench.
Yeah, it would. And surrounded by these beautiful scented flowers on a summer's
Me
evening.
waiting on you.
Yeah, exactly. With his one
With
hand.
his one
Yeah.
hand.
But you've had a bit of an accident.
I have.
So.
I have.
So we'll have to do the work and you'll have to direct
I'll do the
operations.
pointing.
Right, we've come prepared. I'm going to dump that down there.
Right. Which one are we going to do first?
Well, I think we should start with this. I mean, there are two very similar shrubs here. They're both spirea. We want to take these out. And if possible, we want to save them, save their lives, and at the same time reinvigorate them. So we're going to prune them. So you want to start by taking out old wood. This wood is the stuff that's old. It's all twigs at the end, nearly dead stuff. You just want to get rid of that.
Yes.
But if we cut back to these lovely new strong shoots, at the moment all that energy is going right up in the air, but if we cut some of these back to just above one of these shoots and at the same time cut out lots of this old wood.
Good.
So where's some pruners? So always leave a sloping cut like this so the water actually runs away and that shoot can come up without rotting at all.
So can we apply these same principles to all the shrubs in the garden?
Not to everything, but to quite a lot of shrubs. Stuff like forsythia and wigelia. It's very compulsive, isn't it?
It's difficult to know
Yeah.
when to stop, isn't it?
But there's loads more to do
Right.
too, so
Yes.
we better crack on. Yeah?
Right.
OK.
So we need to clear the ground, which includes moving the shrubs Sally and Jeff want to keep. The idea is to get as much soil as possible, but it's got to be portable. 1, 2, 3, hut. And we'll just go this way.
That's it.
This whole area is going to be your utility area.
That's what we planned, yes.
You've got plans to grow veg, haven't you?
Eventually, yes. But I think for now we're just going to use it as a sort of holding bed, aren't we? Yes.
Nursery bed.
Yes.
The shrubs can stay here until Sally and Jeff have decided where to plant them, back in the garden. 1, 2, 3, right over it and then drop. Just give it a nice gentle healing. What a difference, eh? Isn't it?
It's amazing.
It is. You can see the pond.
Yes.
What a difference a day makes.
Well done. Today's hard work has given Sally and Jeff a clear idea of how to put their plan into action. We've started the process that they'll continue, so that next time I'm here, we can get on with creating the flower beds that Sally would love.
It'll be interesting to see how the garden develops and how now they've got their views, they create their own private sense of space. Well, the pond is full. It won't take any more water. And you know, it's becoming more and more important that gardeners make ponds because we've lost almost all the natural ponds that used to be on farmland all over the country, and they just disappeared. So if gardeners can have ponds, however small, that becomes a really important place where wildlife can live and maintain and be happy. So if you can get one in your garden, so much the better. So next week, I'm going to start the planting process. But for the moment, we'll just leave it be and go do something else. Come on, Nigel. Let's go bananas. Boy. Well, to go from the natural and the wild to, in the context of this garden at least, the very unnatural. This is a banana. It's the Abyssinian banana, Ensete ventricosum morellii. And it won't withstand any cold at all. So I lifted it from the jewel garden last October and brought it in here. And the reason I brought it into the tool shed, not into the greenhouse, was I wanted it to go dormant. I wanted somewhere cool but frost-free and dark. So now we've come to Easter time. It needs to be gently brought back into its summer life. Whoops, there we go. You can see the new growth here is coming up, and it's touched with this lovely plum colour that this particular variety has. And when it's mature, you have fantastic chocolate-coloured leaves, ribbed with ruby-coloured veins. But if I was to take this from the dark comfort of the tool shed, and after I thought the frost would pass in May, plonk it outside and plant it where it's to grow in the jewel garden, it would be too sudden a re-entry. It would be completely shocked. And it's really important with any tender plant that you've protected over winter to gradually reintroduce it. Now, for a banana, this comes in some very, very simple stages. I'm going to top that up with a little bit of garden compost just to give it a little tweak of nutrition, and I'm going to water it. Everything about this plant is dramatic. Not just what it does above ground, but it eats like a glutton. It needs all the compost and feed you can give it. The richer the soil, the better. It drinks heroically. But if you can satisfy its demands, it repays it in spades. It is such a dramatic plant. Now, another plant which is also greedy, also thirsty, also exotic, but on a slightly smaller scale, which I've grown in the garden here at Longmeadow for years and years, are cannas. I think these are just wonderful. And for the jewel garden, perfect, because they have real intensity. Now, this is a canna called Australia, which grows tall with a great big flower spike. This is Wyoming, which has a more distinctly chocolatey leaf and an orange flower. Now, at this stage of the year, what we're doing is taking them out of hibernation. These have been potted up into leaf mould, so they've got very little nutrition. I often store them, actually, in a shed. They don't need light over winter. These have been in the greenhouse simply because it was more convenient to put them there. We're taking this all out. This will be planted out round about Chelsea week, which is the third week of May. Now, one way of pushing it on would be to repot these into a compost-rich mix. But at this stage, just putting them somewhere a little bit warmer will be fine. And a porch would work well. Now, I grow cannas and bananas and all kinds of tender plants because they work in the overall look that I'm after. And I really don't mind if they're hardy or not. I'm not trying to create a tropical garden. I'm trying to create a beautiful garden, and it happens to fit that mix. But occasionally in the UK, you come across gardens that can only be described as tropical. And Joe has been to visit one in an unlikely location.
This was no ordinary filming assignment. I'd been sent to the deepest depths of suburban Surrey. This is so dramatic, a real jungle garden, packed full of huge plants, bananas, gunnera. Oh, look at this, tetrapanax. I've never seen one as big as that. Well, not in Surrey, anyway. This is amazing. Jack Salway has lived here for 37 years.
Jack!
Hello.
You really do garden with a machete.
I do.
Right. I'll help you out.
Oh, thank you very much.
Out of the jungle.
Yeah.
What an incredible garden. It is so unexpected, I have to say.
Thank you.
Did you always want to create a garden like this?
Well, when we came here, I felt the garden had potential, but I didn't really know what to do with it. And then I discovered gunnera. A good ground cover, and it just developed slowly into a subtropical garden.
I've never heard of gunnera described as a ground cover plant before. Yeah, it gets to whatever, 3, 4 metres tall. I guess it is covering ground.
It is.
So what sort of microclimate do you have here?
Well, the garden's situated in a coombe, a steep-sided, narrow valley, and you can have a gale blowing, and we're protected from the wind down here. It's very humid. In hot weather, it's unpleasant down here after about 10 o'clock in the morning.
It gets quite steamy.
It gets very steamy and humid, yes.
Yeah, I can almost hear the parakeets now flying around. And the plants you got here, some of them look like they're on steroids. They're really big leaf things. Is that what you're really into?
Yes, I'm afraid so. So I'm looking for species like Magnifica or Gigantica or Robustus or Superbus.
Those
Yeah,
words.
those are the
When
ones.
you see that in the catalogue,
That's it for me. Yeah,
you think I'm
that's
having
right.
one of those.
And that gives us subtropical effect.
Well, do you want to put the machete down and show me around?
Okay.
'Cause I'd love to see some of the plants that you've got.
I'll put it in a safe place.
Yeah, put it in a safe place.
There we are.
Hopefully we won't be needing that for a minute. Wow. This is exciting.
That's colocasia, and it has these dark stems, so it's called colocasia and burgundy stem.
That is absolutely stunning, and it's perfection. Because it shows you how protected it is here.
Oh,
'cause
yes.
Normally that'd get ripped up by the wind, all the leaves would be severely damaged. And these castor oil plants, again, they're fantastic specimens.
Yeah.
How'd you grow this one?
I sow the seeds in the middle of March, and when they're about 12 inches high in the middle of May, and I plant them out, and They're about 12 feet high now, and they're still growing.
I guess that is it searching for the light? Is that what it is?
I think so. Yes, yes, and the moisture. There's a constant supply of moisture here. Things never dry out.
Wonderful. Now this plant,
Just...
I am so excited about this because I've seen it as a perennial. It grows and then the frost get it and it dies down and it comes back a bit leafy. But I've never seen one grow into a multi-stemmed, large shrub like this. It is stunning. Tetrapanax.
Tetrapanax, and that's Rex.
Yeah.
So they refer to it as T-Rex for dramatic effect.
That's a good name for it.
I could see. Let's see if I can measure the leaf here.
Oh, you got a tape measure?
I've got a tape measure.
Do you always carry that around, Jack?
Oh, well, only when I'm showing off. I think if you can hold the other, often these will get to 1 metre across.
Oh, are we going across?
Well, from one end to the other. Have you got at the other end?
Yeah, that's about it.
There we are. So what does that say?
That's 120.
Yes. Yeah.
1 metre 20.
Yes.
That's enormous.
It is, isn't it?
Just one leaf.
Yeah.
And a really beautiful leaf as well. Yeah, are you pleased with that?
Oh, yes.
Is that a record in your book?
It is. It went equal to the record.
Calicacia. This is a beauty as well, isn't it?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. This is fortuitously known as Jack's Giant, if only it was named after me.
It is named after you.
Well, I'd like to claim the credit for it. They get pretty big as well, but...
I thought a tape measure was coming out.
I think so.
I thought the tape measure would see it.
This will grow to 1 metre across, but we need a few more weeks of it. So, there we are. What does that say?
About 95?
95. It will get to a full metre, yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Jack, not everyone's as lucky as you with the microclimate and the damp soil that you've got here. But if they wanted to get this exotic look with hardy plants, which ones here could they use?
Oh, there quite a few are hardy and tough. There's a bamboo here, the golden bamboo. So that's pretty tough.
And stunning, too.
Yes, especially when the sun's on it. There's the trachycarpus, the big palm there.
And they'll set the tone, and then, you can just add in shots of colour, as you have, with some hardy plants as well. Yes. Well, I think your garden is absolutely stunning. Honestly, I would never expect to see anything like this in the middle of Surrey. Thanks for showing me around, Jack.
I love the look of delighted surprise on Jack's face. It's clear that this jungle in his Surrey garden came as a complete unexpected bonus. But the key thing is to be responsive to the conditions on the ground. It doesn't matter what should grow or what everyone else is growing. If you can grow it, that's great. But if you can't, don't force it, because then the plants will never thrive like they clearly were in his garden. Now, these want a little bit of water. Right, they're now ready to start growth. I don't want the growth to be too fast. I just want to monitor it over the next couple of months so that when the last risk of frost is gone and I plant them out, that's when I really want them to take off. And you may not grow cannas, but here are some things you can be doing in your garden this Easter weekend. Easter is traditionally the time to plant potatoes, and there are two ways you can do this. If you've got raised beds, simply plant them in a grid in a hole about 6 inches deep and space them 12 to 18 inches apart. If you're growing in an open piece of ground, dig a V-shaped trench and space the seed potatoes along the bottom of it, about 18 inches apart. Backfill the trench to leave a ridge over the top of them. Now is the perfect time to plant lilies in pots, and this will give them the loose root run that they thrive in. I mix leaf mould with a bark-based compost, but you could add vermiculite or grit to open it out. Plant the bulbs about 6 inches deep, cover them over, water them, and put them somewhere sheltered to grow on. And then, around about the middle of June, they can be moved to their final position. If you haven't done so already, it's time to take the mower out and make the first cut of your grass. The key thing is set the blades high and don't cut it too short. Just trim off the top. Do this for the first few weeks, and this will provide some protection if the weather stays cold. What I love most about this time of year is that combination of a sense of hope, of life just pushing up out of the ground with subtlety and delicacy. And this is found in really very ordinary plants. So you can't beat the ordinary primrose, Primula vulgaris, or the violets. Nothing is more intense in colour. And here I've got some Hecatea, less common, but another extraordinary plant with these very green petals, looking as though they could be stitched onto some sort of gorgeous Elizabethan costume. And all this in a woodland setting, so you have a very British feeling of plants growing in springtime and everything possible for the future. We've got to that time of year when the soil in the raised beds is dry enough for a bit of direct sowing. And in this bed, I'm just going to put members of the beet family. So that's beetroot, Swiss chard, ruby chard, and spinach. So if I start with some straight Swiss chard, because the leaves are delicious, they're like spinach. I always find it interesting that the French, they call it blette, tend to throw away the leaves and eat the stems, and we tend to throw away the stems and eat the leaves. And they make quite substantial plants that can be cut again and again and will last for months and months. And you can see I'm sowing it fairly thinly, and I will thin it quite considerably once they germinate. Now, get the spacing right, so we go like that, and then just cover that row over. Ruby chard tends to grow a little bit less vigorously than Swiss chard, but is a little bit sweeter, I think. Next up, let's have some beetroot. Now, this is Tondo de Chioglia. When you cut through it, it's got these concentric rings. It's particularly sweet, delicious beetroot. Roast them with thyme, absolutely delicious. Finally, grow some spinach. And this is a type called Norman. So I'm sowing this deliberately quite thickly as a kind of cut and come again salad crop. Right, well, there's a small bed of beet. And the important thing is to keep it regularly watered. Now, I can see the rain clouds on the horizon, and it poured with rain a couple of nights ago, so the soil is fairly moist. But if it's dry or it doesn't rain for a week, give them a good soak, and that way you get nice, steady growth and delicious chard, beetroot and spinach. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you have a really good Easter weekend. And we've really enjoyed seeing the pictures you sent us. So if you've got any pictures of spring flowers in your garden, please send them in. And I'll see you next week back here at Longmeadow. Till then, bye-bye. Come on, here, have a biscuit.